Dome Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now, listen, we're gonna talk a little boxing. We're gonna talk a little middleweight, right? But before that, this World Cup is going on. Yeah, I know America, we don't really care that much, but the World Cup is going on, right? And the best game so far had to be Cristiano Ronaldo and his boys in Portugal tying, having a draw with Spain. Spain is a favorite up in here, right? Spain is a favorite. You talking about favorites in the World Cup? Spain ain't gonna get mentioned. Brazil, Germany for sure, right? And then to a lesser extent, well, Italy not there this time. But then you got Argentina up in there, and the Francis. That's who I got as a dark horse. But you ain't had no Portugal supposed to be tying Spain. So Cristiano Ronaldo had a hat trick on him. Every kind of way you needed to score, right? Penalty at the end, 88th minute. Not a penalty, excuse me. Free kick, had a penalty, then scored one with the left foot. Everything you need. The only thing was missing in that game was a header. Big stuff. So we got the World Cup going on. So it's other things going on other than boxing and people who about to fight. So let's talk about the middleweights. Yo, I'm a little late to the party. Wasn't feeling too well. Whatever. The short version of what's going down. Your boy Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, right? Have signed to fight. That's old news, right? Should have had my told you hat on. Because I've been telling you that for about a year. These boys need each other. There's too much stuff going out. Too many. It is nowhere to go except to each other. So we knew at the end of the day these guys were gonna fight. So it wasn't really no news for me. So the news really Cristiano Ronaldo hat trick in Spain. If you ask me, Canelo and uh, Triple G, in my opinion, should not even be pay per view. Right? I know no one really cares what Doma's saying over here on the internet somewhere. Whatever. But I've been saying it from day one, really. This should not even be pay per view after we know what's going on. After Canelo's coming off of failing 2 drug tests, and we watched Gennady Golovkin want to fight anybody except any mandatory on May the 5th, finding out at least 6 weeks ahead of the date, not wanting to fight a mandatory. So these guys are about to have a lucrative fight on pay per view. People are gonna pay for seeing. Okay, your reason for paying to see Canelo fight, is it because he's the best super middleweight, middleweight? Is it because he was the best junior middleweight? Is it who he's beat on his ledger? What, Kirkland, right? Mir Khan, Liam Smith? That's something that makes you feel like he has a whole lot of momentum to where he's, the guy with all these guys in the middleweight division right there. That's pay per view, but we're gonna watch Charlo for free. We're gonna watch Daniel Jacobs for free. We can watch Darren Chinko, Demetrius Andrade, anybody else for free. But Canelo's better. It's supposed to be a lucrative fight. Really? Well, pay it. Not pay per view because it's not the best 154 or 160. You have a fan base. It's not enough anymore. At this particular time, it's time after that those drug offenses should have been coming back fighting anybody to establish some type of dominance in the 160-pound division. And either any one of these mandatories or Demetrius Andrade, who's been calling you out forever, would have been sufficed. But that here shouldn't be a lucrative fight. But you're going to get away with it. Gennady Golovkin, same thing. Okay? May 5th should not have been Vanis Matarosen. And now you're watching the articles when they write about it, they don't say anything about how that materialized with Vanis Matarosen. Gennady Golovkin comes off a devastating knockout of Vanis Matarosen. And I told you it's the same as bullfighting. People who like that like bullfighting too. Right? Vanis Matarosen. We know he wouldn't fight for 2 years, had dust on his gloves, and come from weight division lower. Wouldn't have been a problem if everybody significant in the middleweight division wasn't available. So when you hear mainstream, you're not going to hear any of those details. But that here is not mainstream. So for me, knowing all of those details, that is not even close to pay per view. It's like, let's see these guys hook up. And then when you finish that, can you handle some other business? Because you're lucky that people feel as though that's something special between Golovkin and Canelo. You know, right? Luckily, we call it a lucrative fight, and it's on pay per view. But good for you guys. I told you guys how I feel. There's things Gennady Golovkin for me used to be everything stopped dude, which means when he's fighting, everything stops. Maybe a day or two before, everything stops for the greats. Gennady Golovkin was one. Canelo will never one really for me. Not yet. It was like okay, what he was about to prove. If he would have fought Laura again, would have been there. Everything stopped today, right? But not just because he's fighting Amir Khan or Liam Smith. Everything didn't stop then. Golovkin, everything stops, but not for no Gladys Rosen. StubHub could have been there. No, not Gladys Rosen. Rosen, not happening. And these two guys here, because I know how it's happening, everything ain't stopping. Right? Until after that fight. Now I'm gonna watch probably the day after, or if I don't go to dinner extra, right? But if not, the day after. It's not a big fight. It's a big fight, but it's not a pay-per-view fight. I don't think they should be lucrative if all these other guys that are there are not worse than them at all. Not worse than there's the argument is there for everyone. Every one of the mandatories and some people that are not even mandatory yet. I don't think Andre is mandatory is number one in Atlanta, but not mandatory. All those guys. So good luck with that fight, that pay per view, and if it's gonna be lucrative, shame on people that's gonna pay for that one, right? But after knowing what's going on, you should everybody. I think casual fans have found out how the negotiations went down. Which okay, Gennady Golovkin should have got more than 35%, especially after Canelo had those doping transgressions. No doubt about that. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't be so much more lucrative than a Golovkin fighting Danny Jacobs. Shouldn't be much lucrative than a Canelo fighting Charlo or Billy Joe Saunders. These guys are just as good, right? So that's my only issue. This is supposed to be so much more lucrative. The question is why? Doma Sports Talk. Worldwide. And I'm about here, y'all.